this morning's Virginia at Work, we're talking about a major part of the job sector that often gets little attention. It's the trillion-dollar freelance industry, which works for some people as their side hustle. Every month, the Department of Labor releases jobs data. As of 2017, the unemployment rate was holding steady at a 17-year low of 4.1%. American employers hired more than they fired, extending the longest stretch of job growth on record. In these statistics, there's one big group hiding in plain sight: freelancers. The government has difficulty in counting exactly how many flexible workers participate in the U.S. economy, because with their entrepreneurial spirit, some also have full-time jobs or part-time jobs. It makes them difficult to categorize. Where government figures are cloudy, private companies make them clear.
The workforce has become really flexible. More and more employees out there want to be working freelance. Right now, estimates are about 53 million Americans are working freelance right now. That's 34% of the American workforce. And projections are that half of all Americans could be working freelance by the end of the decade.
Another private study conducted by Edelman Intelligence shows the freelance American workforce is contributing $1.4 trillion to the U.S. economy, an increase of almost 30% since last year. Companies such as WeWork have built an entire business model catering to the freelance economy. The third largest startup in the U.S. has a valuation of $20 billion. It runs office space on demand. Entrepreneurial workers can rent space for $45 a month. Workers have furniture, snacks, a fridge, a coffee machine, and a sense of community. Some freelance workers occasionally want in-demand freelance skills such as computer programming or language translation can make at least double the national average salary of $50,000 a year. But they must also save for their own retirement and pay for their own health care benefits, most readily accept those risks.
Working for another company, especially in this economy, is even more risky because you're dispensable. They can get rid of you whenever they want. When you're an entrepreneur, you create your own destiny.
All right, and talking specifically about right here in our region, a recent Cortex Leadership poll question finds the majority of listeners on K92 actually have a side job or a freelance side hustle. In a vote, 64% said yes to having a side hustle, while 37% said no. But how do you make freelancing, or as I like to call it, your side hustle, a full-time gig? To answer that question, we turn to our panel of women who've basically done just that. Lynda McNutt Foster, CEO of Cortex Leadership Consulting. We also have Samantha Steidle, Innovation Officer with Virginia Western Community College, right here in the middle, and Caitlynn, Staggs, founder of MOBIUS Marketing. Ladies, good morning.
Good morning.
We want to start with you, Caitlynn, because I find your journey very interesting. You started as a police officer who ultimately had this big change. Tell us about your journey.
Well, for the longest time, I dreamed of being in law enforcement and thought that's what I would always do. So after college, that's exactly what I did. I was a police officer. When we were expecting our first child, I just knew that that lifestyle and career style, they did not match. So I transitioned out and I began working in marketing and communications, which I see a lot of transferable skills that need to have strong communication skills chiefly. And from there, I just started getting asked to provide marketing consultation and support services on the side, so it was kind of an accidental side gig, really. And as that continued to grow, there just wasn't enough time in the day to do both, and I had to make a decision. And the thing I was unwilling to give up was my side hustle that is now MOBIUS Marketing.
So what was the scariest part for you, or what was the thing that you really had to cope with to make this a reality, to make it your full-time gig?
I think a lot of times it's self-doubt. It's asking those questions: am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Am I capable enough? And that's where it's really important to surround yourself with a village, to not do it in isolation, but to have a team that is your gut check and your biggest cheerleaders when you have those doubts.
And Samantha, this is actually something that you teach a lot of students, either during lectures or when you guys are hosting some of these seminars. What advice do you give to people who may be in Caitlynn's position, or maybe they're like she was, doubting themselves?
Sure. So the most important thing is to make sure that you think about the demand, that you gauge demand, and you make sure that the market actually wants what you think they want, because they might not. So asking questions, making sure that you're on the right track before you even think about marketing your product or your idea.
So it's about the research then in that case?
On the front end, yes, it can be.
Now, Lynda, you've had Cortex Leadership Consulting, which was your side hustle.
Yeah, the coaching was my side hustle years ago, and then it was like Caitlynn, it became this sort of full-time thing because of the demand that people said, why don't you do this?
So what would be then your advice for a small business owner or someone who's just getting started making their side hustle their full gig, so that they don't fall in there are like some of those traps that people fall into, and what they're excited about ultimately ends up going down the drain. So what would you say to those people to help them not go there?
It's very easy for people to get into a echo chamber. So the most important thing that you can do is to try to get advice and look for information, not confirmation, because so many people listen to advice from the people around them that agree with them. So if you're not having conversations where people completely disagree with you and there's not this healthy debate going on, there's a very good likelihood that you're not getting the complete information that you need in order to be successful.
So not surrounding yourself with a bunch of yes men.
Definitely not. Yeah, we were at a meeting on Friday and I thought, oh yeah, there is nobody in my universe that totally agrees with me, which is tough, but it's also like incredibly healthy. It's incredibly healthy to be around with people that go, no, I totally disagree with you. Well, tell me your perspective. That means you're seeing the world from a completely different perspective than I am. And that's what we need to do to be able to get a 360-degree view of what we're about to do. There's a lot of risk in going into business, right?
There really is. All right, this is a conversation we are continuing during Virginia at Work. Ladies, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
Alexandre?